While the awfully named boomer shooter is burgeoning, with everyone and their mother creating pixelated FPSs that harken back to the way things used to be, there's an unspoken acceptance from a large swath of retro shooting fans that the genre peaked in 1994, with the release of Doom 2 and the Super Shotgun. Others will be inclined to say Duke or Blood, others still will say Quake. You might even get a Half-Life or Unreal mention now and then, but there's no denying that a select group of shooters have such huge modding communities that there really is no need to play any other shooter of the time, as they no longer offer anything the classics can't provide. Isn't it about time you discovered why millions still play a game that's nearly 30 years old? Now, I personally prefer the original Doom because to hell with Arch files, but this video will cover them both, and is primarily aimed at people who for some inexplicable reason don't own a copy of Doom, but want to play the glorious fan-modded monstrosity that it has become. Your first port of call is the Freedom Project website to download Freedom Phase 1 and 2. They're contained in the same zip file. The Freedom Project created a complete first-person shooter game in WAD format, but it is completely useless without an engine to run it. Fortunately, the source code for Doom was released under the new general public license, which has resulted in alternative engines called source ports that run Doom WADs. You'll not be able to download and play the original Doom levels legally, but that's where our first download comes into play. In addition to providing artwork, sound effects and music, Freedom provides its own level replacements for the original Doom. In essence, this makes it a completely free replacement for what the engine was expecting from the Doom files. Sure, the levels and visuals aren't as good as the classics, but we'll get to that. The project recommends gzdoom or Crispy Doom, but there are all kinds of free and open source engines that can run the WAD files that Freedom comprises. We'll go for gzdoom for now, just for the sake of this video. Once you've installed gzdoom, like any other program on your operating system of choice, you can test Freedom out by dropping the WAD files from the zip into the applications directory or configuration directory, or sometimes just onto the executable itself. This will vary wildly again, depending on what you've installed it on and how. Generally, it'll tell you in the gzdoom.ini file where it's expecting things to be. But if you can't get it working, don't worry about that right now. When you run gzdoom, it'll ask you what WAD you want to play from the folders it has scanned, and you can select either Phase 1 or Phase 2 if they're detected. Congratulations, you're one step closer to infinite Doom. Feel free to turn off that horrible texture filtering while you're there. Much better. If you were unable to get that far, or want to apply more modifications without the headache of manual text file editing like in my previous videos, you'll probably want to acquire a launcher. There are all kinds of popular choices with their own way of doing things. Whatever launcher you end up using, they generally operate on the same principle, reading the iWADs, WADs and mod files from specific folders. I went with the cross-platform Doom runner for the purpose of this video, though gzdoom launcher on the Windows side of things is very popular. If you don't want to play Phase 1 or 2's maps, you can download maps from Doom World, an enormous repository of WAD files. You then place those files in a handy folder and point your trusty launcher at them. These can be anything from single maps, episode replacements, or entire campaigns known as megawads that replace every map in the game with a custom one. As it currently stands, no matter which one you load, they're going to look and sound like Freedom and not Doom. See what I mean? So let's fix that. The Doom Neural Upscale from HID Fan replaces every graphic from Freedom with an AI upscaled version of the original artwork. If you stick that in your mod load order, you'll see the difference immediately. Yeah, that looks more like Doom. The source port engine containing the altered Doom code asks the Freedom iWAD for all the graphical information, and then this mod, being next in the load order, paints over that. The result is something that looks a lot like the original Doom games. Some would argue it looks even better. I wouldn't, but it's a decent replacement for now. However authentic looking it is, it'll still sound like free Doom. Fortunately, Doom used a lot of stock sound effects, and fans have tracked down the libraries. As of recording, you have a choice between Doom's Sound Bulb from Shaun the Burminator and Per Kristen's older high-res sound pack. Use your Doom launcher to stick that in the load order after the texture pack. Yeah, that sounds more like the Doom weapons and monsters now. Now that our Doom looks and sounds like Doom, there's the matter of the music. A lot of the custom maps you can play through will also feature their own MIDI soundtrack, and the source port I'm using has Deemster's SC55 sound font by default to play them, which is suitably retro and enjoyable, so we'll not replace that. If you ever want to, you can manually replace the SF2 file called gzdoom, or use the in-game options to pick another method of playing the MIDI. Maxime Abbey's Arachno sound font is always a fun choice. The problem with choice is that some of the music choices from these map makers are terrible, and there's no way to get the default music back for maps without any music whatsoever, as Free Doom is still doing the heavy lifting with its custom MIDI soundtrack, right? Wrong. The Mega Muse randomizer will play a great selection of Doom music, as well as soundtracks for all the classic games, and some of the best Doom community efforts. This is far better than having silence, or a MIDI version of the Macarena, like this level did. Ah, my ears! Plus, if you don't like a track, you can skip it by hitting the M key. The great thing about combining gzdoom with Free Doom is that most of the popular game mods are also available. These are entirely optional. But here's Beautiful Doom, which adds smoother animations and different sound and lighting effects, while maintaining the core gameplay. And here's the famous Brutal Doom. Or why not go full bore with Project Brutality? The choice of how you want to play Doom is yours. Not only do you have more levels to play than you could manage in your lifetime, but you also have an enormous number of ways to play them. Every year since 2004, Doom World has held the annual CAC Awards, where they pick out brilliant maps and honour long-standing or notable members of the greater Doom community. Some of these maps are good for newcomers. Others are absolutely vicious or enormous in scope, and should only be approached by veterans. If you've somehow battled through all the more recent WODs from Doom World and want to sample some classic maps of the past, Compendium combines 54 different classic megawads from 1994 through to the mid-2000s. That's over 1,000 levels, with a main hub that you can select them in. So even if you didn't want to go traipsing through the Doom World archives, there's more Doom than you could ever hope to finish in one single package. And it's mod friendly. Last but not least, if you've really completed all of the id Games database and want more Doom to play, there's Obsidian. Obsidian is a forked version of Oblige, which was a random map maker that uses seed generation and AI to create WOD files that Doom can play. A theoretical endless number of them, so long as computers continue to exist that can run the code. Though I suspect so long as Doom map makers exist, you probably won't need to resort to exclusively playing AI-generated alternatives. And that's why this guide is called Infinite Doom, because with so many options to explore, and more coming out with each passing year, Doom never dies. Only the players do. So what are you waiting for? Go rip and tear. And if you like me talking about Doom or old retro stuff, I have a whole channel full of that sort of material. Feel free to take a look at the scripted videos or my Doom stuff, and if you like what you see, you can always subscribe. Until next time.